Hi guys, my name is Princess Emeg, and today I'm going to be reading chapter 2 of Jane Eyre. Now, if you saw the last video, then if you didn't see the last video, then none of this will make sense. But a summary of chapter 1 is basically we met Jane Eyre in her adolescence. She was 10 years old. She had been living with her aunt and cousins for around 9 years, ever since her parents died. And her uncle passed away when she was not long after she joined them. But she had lived there since she was 10 years old, and she was miserable. She did not like it at all. So she went to Lowood School. And we left off at a place where she had just reached Lowood. So now, let's get back into it. Lowood Institution was a charity school for girls who had lost one or both parents. There were about 80 students between the ages of 9 and 20. Relatives of each student paid £15 a year, and the rest of the cost for board and teaching was made up by donations from wealthy ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Brocklehurst, the treasurer and manager of the school, was the final authority on all matters relating to Lowood Institution. He bought our food and clothes, although he rarely visited in person. All the students wore the same brown stuff frocks, too thin for the chilly rooms. There were chilblains all over our feet from the cold, and 6 girls for every basin of water to wash. It's frozen. The food was insufficient and often burnt. Whatever the older girls had a chance, they would coax or menace the little ones out of their portion. Many times I was forced to share my precious morsel of bread. They stole her food and drank her water. After relinquishing half the contents of my coffee mug too, I was swallowed the remains with secret tears. The one comfort of Lowood was Miss Temple, the school superintendent. Miss Temple: on my second day at school, the porridge at breakfast was too burnt to eat. We should have fasted until dinner, but she ordered the kitchen to serve us lunch of bread and cheese. The other teachers were much stricter. Miss Scratchard, I don't know how to pronounce that word, in particular, was quick to dole out punishments, but never praise. That girl. One student answered every question correctly, but was yelled at for having dirty nails. I expected the girl to explain that she hadn't been able to wash that morning because the water was frozen, but she said nothing. Even when Miss Scratchard whipped her neck with a bunch of twigs. The girl held back her tears in silence. I quivered with impotent anger and wondered at her restraint. After school. It's freezing today. I wish she would finish reading so I could talk to her. Is your book interesting? I like it. What is your name? Helen Burns. You must wish to leave Lowood. No. I was sent to Lowood to get an education, and it would be no use going away until I attained that goal. But the teacher, Mrs. Scratchard, is so cruel to you. Cruel? Not at all. She is severe. She dislikes my faults. If I were in your place, I should dislike her. I should resist her. If she struck me with that rod, I should get it from her hand and break it under her nose. Probably you would do nothing of the sort, but if you did, you would be expelled and bring grief to your relations. It would be your duty to bear it if you could not avoid it. It is weak and silly to say you cannot bear it if you're fate to bear. Besides, the Bible bids us return good for evil. I do not judge by appearances. I am careless. I forget rules and never keep things in order, and I read when I ought to be studying. Miss Scratchard is only trying to help me become a better person. But she is being cruel to you. I feel that I must dislike those who dislike me for no reason. Heathens and savage tribes hold that doctrine, but Christians and civilized nations disown it. Follow instead the words of Christ. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to those that hate you and despitefully use you. Then I should love Mrs. Reed? I cannot do it. You would not be happier if you tried to forgive her severity? I had been 3 weeks at Lowood when a much dreadful movement finally arrived. Who introduced this innovation, and by what authority? The housekeeper informs me that a lunch of bread and cheese has been served twice in the past fortnight. How is this? I am responsible, sir. The breakfast was so ill-prepared that the pupils could not possibly eat it. You are aware that my plan is bringing these girls up is not to accustom them to the habits of luxury and indulgence, but to render them hardy, patient, self-denying. If Mr. Brocklehurst keeps his promise to Mrs. Reed, I will be branded as a bad child in the eyes of everyone at Lowood. I hope he does not notice me. Miss Temple, you may feed them their vile bodies with such things, but you little think how you starve their immortal souls. Why does that girl have curled hair? Such vanity is a defiance of every precept and principle of this school. Her hair curls naturally. Naturally, yes, but we are not to conform to nature. Their hair should be plain and modest. Cut off those top knobs. My mission is to teach these girls to clothe themselves with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with braided hair and costly apparel. My dear husband, we have completed our scrutiny of the upstairs rooms. Papa, may we leave? This dank air is loosening my curls. If you aren't aware already, back in the day, curling hair that wasn't already curled is actually a trick. Is actually a thing that's only used by the upper class. So basically, if you're not getting the irony here, he's treating all the girls at Lowood School as inferiors, that they're basically not worthy of living by practically starving them and freezing them to death, while he's treating his own daughters. Really? You just have to look at her outfit and... Well, anyways, it's Mr. Brocklehurst's wife and daughters. The way they dress is simply sumptuous. Those hats must have cost a fortune. They made my point. No, Jane drops her slate. Let the child who broke her slate come forward. Oh, no. Who would think that the evil one has already found a servant and agent in such a young girl? Yet that is the case. A pious and charitable lady who took her in and was repaid with ingratitude. You must all be on your guard against her, for she is the worse than many a little heathen. This girl is a liar. Let her stand half an hour longer on that stool, and let no one speak to her for the rest of the day. All leave at the end of the session, and Jane is left alone. But Helen passes her and smiles. I stood upon my pedestal of infamy, sure that I could not bear this shame, but Helen smiled at me, filling me with hope and strength. Night came and she collapsed. The half-hour ended, school was dismissed, and I was left alone. The spell which had supported me was broken, and I abandoned myself to tears. I had meant to be good, so good at Lowood, to make friends, earn respect, and win affection. Now, here I lay, crushed and trodden on. Could I never rise again? Come, eat something. Why do you stay with a girl whom everybody believes to be a liar? They must all despise me after what Mr. Brocklehurst said. You are mistaken. Many, I am sure, pity you. Mr. Brocklehurst is little liked here. If he has treated you as a favorite, you would have found enemies. This will pass in a day or two. Besides, even if all the world hated you, so long as your own conscience absolved you of guilt, you would not be without friends. That isn't enough. If others don't love me, I would rather die than live. To gain real affection from you or Miss Temple or any others whom I truly love, I would have willingly submit to have the bone of my arm broken, or let the bull toss me, or to stand behind a kicking horse. Hush, Jane, you think too much of the love of human beings. Besides this the earth, and the race of men, there is an invisible world of angels who watch over us. God awaits only the separation of spirit from flesh to crown us with full reward. Why then should we ever be overwhelmed by distress? Helen Burns is my favorite character. I came on purpose to find you, Miss Eyre. Miss Temple. Helen Burns, you may come too. Have you cried your grief away? I'm afraid I shall never do that. Why? Because I have been wrongly accused. You and everyone else will think me wicked. Continue to act as a good girl, and you will satisfy us. Shall I, Miss Temple? You will. When a criminal is accused, he is always allowed to speak in his own defense. You have been charged with falsehood. Defend yourself. And so, I told her all the story of my sad childhood. Exhausted by emotion, my language was infused with less gall and wormwood than usual. Thus restrained, my tale sounded more creditable. I know something of your Mr. Lloyd, your doctor. I shall write to him. If his reply agrees with your statement, you shall be publicly cleared from any accusation. But to me, you are clear now. He's so happy. Helen, how are you tonight? Have you coughed much today? Not quite so much, I think. Miss Temple served us tea and seed cake beside the warm fire. She and Helen spoke of things I had never heard of before, of nations and times past, of countries far away from the secrets of nature. You two are my visitors tonight. I must treat you well. How many books they had read! I desired to truly belong, to earn with learning and hard work a place in their warm company. About a week later, Miss Temple received a response from Mr. Lloyd not sure how to say that word either. Collaborated with my story. Miss Temple announced my innocence to the whole school, and my fellow students embraced me gladly. Thus relieved of a grievous load, I resolved to pioneer my way through every difficulty. Through hard work, I was promoted to a higher class and began to study French and drawing. I would not now have exchanged Lowood with all its provisions for Gateshead and all its daily luxuries. I don't blame you. Spring brought warm weather, but also typhus to Lowood. By May, the seminary was transformed into a hospital. Semi-starvation and neglected colds had predisposed the pupils to illness. 45 of the 80 girls lay ill at one time. Helen was among the sick, but not with typhus. Her ailment was consumption. That's a form of TB. She had been removed from my sight, and I was forbidden to see her, although she was always in my thoughts. In early June, the doctor admitted that Helen was not long for this world. I begged the nurse to let me visit, but she refused, fearing I would contract a fever. Later that night, I snuck upstairs to see her. Helen, are you awake? Can it be you, Jane? Why are you come here? It is past 11 o'clock. I heard you were very ill, and I could not sleep until I had spoken to you. Your feet are bare. Lie down and cover yourself with my quilt. You are always so kind. You came to bid me goodbye, then? You are just in time, probably. I am going home soon. My last home. No! No! I am very happy, Jane, and when you hear that I am dead, you must not grieve. We must all die one day, and I leave no right to regret my, and I leave no one to regret. 1 minute. We must all die one day, and I leave no one to regret me much. I shall. Where are you going to, Helen? I believe. I have faith. I am going to God. I resign my immortal part to him without any misgivings. Shall I see you again when I die? You will come to the same region of happiness, no doubt, Jane. She begins crying. How comfortable I am. That last fit of coughing has tired me a little. I feel as if I could sleep. But don't leave me, Jane. I'll stay with you, dear Helen. No one shall take me away. Good night, Helen. Good night, Jane. When I awoke, it was day. An unusual movement aroused me. I was in someone's arms and carried back to the dormitory. Later I learned that Miss Temple found us curled together with my face against Helen's shoulder. I was sleeping and Helen was dead. When the typhus fever had fulfilled its mission of devastation at Lowood, it gradually disappeared, but not until the number of its victims had drawn public attention. There was an inquiry which revealed the school's poor condition. Several wealthy individuals in the country donated to assist the schools. These funds also allow for a new building, better diet, and clothes for the students, and a new management committee to oversee the school's affairs. These changes were mortifying to Mr. Brocklehurst, who retained his post as school's treasurer due to his wealth and family connections. However, he was aided in his duties by gentlemen who have more sympathizing minds. Thus improved, the school became, in time, a truly useful and noble institution. I remained within its walls for 8 years, 6 as a pupil and 2 as a teacher. And that is the end of chapter 2. So there we go. There is Jane Eyre chapter 2. Please leave a like and subscribe, and also leave a comment. They really do help me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.